Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our listeners across the globe. This is Barry Muller with the RevAmp podcast. I am really excited for today's guest. His name is Ziv. He has a story to tell and definitely is pretty active on LinkedIn. People follow him on LinkedIn and a little celebrity in the customer success world. And so Ziv, tell us a bit about yourself. And also tell us about AppsFlyer, the company that you work at.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I've been at AppsFlyer for a bit over 8 years. I'm in iTech for over 20 years now. I just look young. And then, I joined AppsFlyer as the employee number 7. I was one of the first 2 customer success managers, and across my journey, I did the customer success support. I led also the product team, and maybe we could speak even about that. But then after 2 years, I came back to do only customer success, and today I'm the chief customer officer. And so I lead both customer success and the support team, almost 300 people across a company of 1,300. And about AppsFlyer, we help marketeers. We are the main component in the marketing stack for the marketeer to know how to operate, to understand the health of their campaigns, to understand where to invest, to understand how to update the product in order to get the best results.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again for being on. I wanted to even go more in depth about your career. I have right now in front of me your LinkedIn open. So I've never done this with one of our guests, but it's just so interesting. I opened this right before our call and I was like, we have to talk more about this. So for our listeners out there, Ziv started in 2013, as he just mentioned, as number 7, as a senior customer success manager. Then 6 months later, the head of customer success. 11 months later, the head of client services. I think 11 months later after that, VP Client Services, you were there for a year and a half in that position. VP Global Client Services, then VP Global Client Services and Product. I think that's the product mention. For the past 2.5 years, you've been a Chief Customer Officer. So I just love that. For me, it's cool to see someone that has been at a company since they were number 7 and see it grow to 1,300 people. And you were a customer success manager. It was probably a team of 1 when you were 7, or everyone was doing customer success. So either 7 or 1, and now it's 300. So that's just really cool to see. Maybe you could talk a bit more about that and give advice to someone that wants to stay at a company, or if they are interested in career progression.
Yeah. So we could speak the entire 30 minutes about that. So first of all, I think a journey. And probably there's a lot of people that are now starting a journey in a company that is pre-seed, seed, pre-A. When I joined, it was pre-A. And I think that that journey is so interesting. And if you pick the right product, the right company, the right market, you can even get a journey like that. And there's so many things that you learn in that journey. A company that understands the product market fit, a company that understands how mission critical their value is. And then I think that also finding your niche, finding your place. And I think one of the greatest things that I believe I got to experience in my journey is the global aspect of things. So I think not a lot of startups grow in Israel and stay managed from Israel in the global aspect. And I think that that's super important. And anyone that wants to grow to be a leader and maybe even an executive in a more mature company needs to think about the global aspect. And we see more and more successful startups in Israel that are not being sold, that are not being acquired, that provides that global aspect. I think that the global aspect is fascinating. I believe that what really ticks for me, and what makes me super passionate in AppsFlyer is that we're providing the same product, the same set of features to all our customers in all verticals across the marketing teams in all the regions in the world. Probably today, close to 40 markets where we operate. Everyone gets the same value, and it's critical value to all these companies. And I think that if you're a customer success manager working with some of these companies, it cannot get more exciting than that.
That's great. And maybe we'll have to make another podcast just to talk about more of your journey. So I love that. Thanks for sharing about that. So I think for our listeners, and the reason we don't want to go more into that is because for our listeners, there are a lot of revenue operations professionals, a lot of CROs. And I think to speak with you as a chief customer officer, it'd be really cool to learn more about the renewals, a lot about your pricing, and how your team works with that. So maybe first to begin off with, to I guess introduce us to so we can understand better about the pricing model at AppsFlyer, on the pricing plans and the model.
In the end, I think we can speak about the evolution of the pricing. So I think, first of all, AppsFlyer is the leader in the market. We're around 70% of the market in mobile attribution and marketing analytics, and then in the marketing measurement analytics as we evolve. I think that what's really, really interesting is that I believe we won the leadership in that market because of our business model, because of how we try to build the equation to be the simplest and the most fair model in the market back in 2013, 2014, 2015. And that won the market both in the growing customers, the upper tier that we had, first small, then medium, then more and more enterprise customers. And at the same time, it also brought us the small customers that was easy for them to install AppsFlyer, not to sign a contract for 12 months. And then when those companies grew, that was the net revenue, the net churn for the growth parameter. And if you look at that from a longer term perspective, that's the very small investment, very small CAC investment back then, 2014, 2015, that would cost probably in 2017, 2018, if we were not acquiring these customers, would cost us 100 to maybe 10,000x more on the CAC.
Wow.
So I think that in the language, this is now the CRO language. In the CRO language, or even in the boardroom language, this was nothing but revolutionary. And again, for us, it happened some of these things happened planned, some of these things happened as destiny. And I think that when we speak maybe further towards that, I think that around 2017, 2018, we started to produce more and more features. Again, most by destiny. And then we also bucket those features, around 7 features in the premium side and all the rest in the non-premium side, which was even for both for customer success and for the sales team, for the revenue stream, as we started to sign more and more contracts, more and more customers on the main package, on the main value of the measurement. And then we already then had 5 to 7 premium features that we could upsell. It was never about seats at AppsFlyer. It was always by what we measure for you. That's the core package. And then in the early days, it was pay-per-use, and you could sign a month over month contracts. And then we started to shift our customers to a contracted yearly and then packages. So as you grow, you get a better package that gives you a better unit economic cost.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I actually remember, I think it was 2013 2014 or 2015, playing with the toggle on the AppsFlyer pricing page just under, so paying, it increased more the numbers, but it became cheaper the more you grew. But it also was, as you mentioned, very affordable for the smaller companies. I think now for the CRO, I guess, audience, that's a lot of people are creating startups or are focusing on product-led growth. And that would be, it seems, the best example of something that is free or close to free, that people can self-service and start themselves as much as possible, and then grow the net dollar retention and grow the lifetime value as they grow, you grow, and as you charge, and then charge even less for them. So it's a cool business model. So right now, it seems we're at the state, or AppsFlyer is at the stage where they're more mature. I mean, they dominate the market with 70%. That's very not common to see in any market. So congrats on that. You're able to not just charge per action, but you're also able to estimate how many actions they'll have for the year, and you charge per year. Is that correct? Did I get that correct?
Right. So yeah, so definitely we have packages where you even pay prepaid for the year, and you get something, there's a carrot and a stick there, and then you get also the ability to pay for contracted yearly and pay monthly. There's a lot of flexibility there, but I think, again, going back to maybe 2018, in 2018 I started to push, and we didn't speak a lot about customer success yet, but customer success for me was always about being the trusted advisor, being the non-commercial person in the room, being part of the team, push the value, build the relationship, and then later on think more strategically about revenue, but from the value realization or from the success outcome of the customer, and from achieving the success outcome of the customer. So that was always kind of the focus. Now, what I can definitely share, in 2018, we started to take the driving the customer success managers to open CS qualified leads that turned to CS qualified opportunities to the sales team, to the growth team, and created lots of opportunities. I can say that since we started, we drove over $300 million from existing customers in less than 4 years.
Wow.
Only from that approach.
Mm-hmm. So right now your customer success team is still not talking about payment with them. They move them to a different team.
Yeah, and I can speak a lot about that. I'm sure there's VP sales, CROs, COOs, even CEOs that thinks that, oh, why should we invest so much in customer success? I have a team of 230 people, including leadership and ops. Why shouldn't we use them to generate money? I think that we are longer term, and we are focused on that value and relationship on one side. Having said that, I think we should definitely drive the CS qualified opportunities that then drives that net revenue retention. At the same time, and again, this is for AppsFlyer, I say, when we work with the customer, we work with the marketing team, with the campaign manager, with the user acquisition director, with the CMO, and then anyhow, the renewal or the upsell or the expansion, maybe, definitely we get the opinions, and maybe one of those people that I just mentioned are the decision makers, but a growth manager, account manager, or sales manager will then need to close that deal with procurement, with the CFO, to run security again, to do the legal negotiation, to do the negotiation. And that's, in our case, that's another line, that's another relationship, that if the CSM were to do it, then they would have less capacity.
Yep. No,
but to speak about the endangering the trust and relationship.
Right. Yeah. And then I guess the third aspect would be, then you would have to also train your customer success team on how to be salespeople in that sense.
Absolutely.
Right. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. And, or maybe for me, it makes sense, but maybe for our listeners, exactly what you said, 230, 300 employees just on customer success. But we saw with the 300 million number, it definitely makes math sense, at least for AppsFlyer. Were there decisions that had to be made in 2018 to like hard decisions? Was it a debate in the office about this model?
Absolutely not. Lots of the vision I built in AppsFlyer was Oren, the CEO, and me. We understand the value. We understood the value back then, back in the day, even in 2014, we understood what we were building, that customer-obsessed approach. And we then understood also what we're scaling here. And in the end, it's a customer-obsessed approach. It's customer experience. But if you look at our customers that are using AppsFlyer for now for 3, 4, 5 years, it's a lot more than that. It's both the main pillars that I'm saying and again in this podcast, value and relationship. But if you think about marketeers usually work in a company over 24 to 36 months. Now, I think even in COVID, even less. So let's say 24 months. If we're shipping great value, if we are helping you get the value that you need, those success outcomes, value realization, if you're getting great service, and then even I develop a relationship with you, probably when you are going to the next company, you will want to work with me again. You will need that AppsFlyer value again. This is the 70%. 70% comes from having all those components. You cannot have a great product and no service, no experience. So the greatest product that works, either the entire service is the product, like Slack, for example. You don't need a customer success manager at Slack. But if your product is more complex and you use it every day and it's not that plug and play, it's self-serve, but then you have very deep things like in measurement, in marketing measurement, in attribution, there's different models. You run with multiple networks, sometimes with dozens. You really need to understand deep how to measure, how to take that data and incorporate it with your backend data, with your proprietary data, how to use it in real time. And that's one of the main values that the customer success managers delivers. And when you get that, then you absolutely grow with us. You absolutely use more and more of AppsFlyer and more of that service. That customer success manager over the years it's also solution architects, it's also support, it's many things.
Right. So that $300 million, does that include the customers that move to new companies after, or that's just upselling they have?
This is just upselling.
So tell me about
customers. So when someone goes to another customer, that's actually a new term in SaaS. Mm-hmm. It's called earned customer. If you think about that, when you go and you buy a customer, you go and you run marketing and you bring those MQLs, MQOs, and then SQLs and SQOs, you are then paid dollars for those leads. Sometimes it takes 9 months to bring a customer. So in the end, your CAC will be, let's say, $50,000. Let's say in the very big enterprise customers, it might even go to that. Maybe let's say 15K. Okay, and then end customers coming from advocacy or recommendation are customers that you are not paying for, and they already have higher intent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. People could literally build business models just off earned. I think that's super interesting and a really good viewpoint to think about as a CRO or an operations professional to mark those things. Is there a process that you guys have internally when you see that churn? Do you reach out to the sales team saying, "Oh, this person moved," or you just wait till they reach out when they're ready?
Customer success and the growth managers and the sales managers, they work in pods in the region. So for example, the CIS team has a very nice spot that they work very, very closely and communicate highly effectively. The US, in China, so the different teams that works in pods and that works very closely together. And we also identified, so one of the great tools that we developed in the last 2.5 years, and one of my obsessions over relationships in the last 2.5 years was to build in Salesforce a new custom object that is to measure these relationships. And when we started to build that, we thought that we will use the contact object. But then we saw that the contact object is the worst object in Salesforce, the noisiest, the dirtiest, and in the end, we've built that custom object. And then another realization that we had was that we need to build a one-to-one mapping. So it's not only that I'm the CSM and I work with HBO, but it's also that I have my line with Jake, with Steve, with Joe, and then there's maybe it's a bigger customer, and then there's also a solution architect, and they also have a line with Jake and Steve. And then there's a sales manager or a growth manager that currently we don't enforce that, but they also have a line with one of them. So we look at these lines separately, and we also mark what is the type of the relationship. So I'm a CSM, and this is on the other side, it's a champion or decision maker or an executive. And then also we look at the strength of the relationship, how personal that relationship is, and if that contact is a supporter or an advocate. And then we also measure, so when someone leaves, doesn't matter if that's the CSM or someone at the customer side, we save those relationships in the past relationships. So we have a snapshot of the relationships that we've built. So if a CSM leaves and then we do a CSM to CSM handover of the account, then the new CSM has a snapshot of what are the relationships that CSM built before. So I know where to start from. Now, the best things that we saw around relationships of a champion leaving is that if I built a great relationship with my champion at the company, then they would orchestrate the successor. They would tell us they're leaving. They, in some cases, they told us where they're leaving to. So they also started to build the opportunity in the new customer or prospect. So making us stronger in a customer or making our position stronger in a prospect, but then also orchestrating the successor within the current company.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love this earned media thing. I think everyone needs to be on top of it. And I also appreciate that you mentioned, I mean, obviously, if you have 230, 300 employees on customer success, there is some churn, even with a great chief customer officer, and how to retain that relationship to make sure those handoffs are correct.
I think on that part, on the handshakes and those things, so lots of the methodology, processes, and tools that we've built in the last 2 years, a lot of it were enhancing the processes that we already done before, just making sure that we are doing those in custom objects in Salesforce, and that the information is not in my notes or in my Asana or in my Gmail. No, those notes are in Salesforce. So a red flag risks of customers leaving are in Salesforce, and the onboarding process is in Salesforce, and the success outcomes, the next custom object that going to be released in Salesforce, the relationships are in Salesforce, the renewal forecasts are in Salesforce, the renewal, we have a strategy group meeting every month and speaking about the renewals of 3 months from now. Those renewal recommendations are being written in Salesforce, and we're trying to cover 100% of these renewal strategies for each and every account, making sure that we have that. And I just mentioned just a few of those, so there's more and more things that we have now in the custom objects. And I think that the revolutionary part of that is that when a CSM now leaves or moves to a new role, and then they hand over now that account to a new CSM, then that CSM has all these written in these custom object in Salesforce, and even a nice Looker dashboard that encapsulates every piece of information in one page.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And I'm sure that took a bunch of the past few years to create a custom object. I'm sure it needed a lot of investment. I wanted to speak a few minutes about the global community. It sounded like that was something you're passionate about when we first started speaking. So you mentioned that from a global perspective, everyone basically has the same pain point. Everyone has the same need. Is there a different way that you manage your global team, even if the user uses AppsFlyer the same?
Yeah, so first of all, definitely there's a lot of value of being close to the market. So we started in Herzliya in Israel. We started from one team, and then very, very early, we decided, like back in 2014, we decided that we want to be as close as possible to the customer. And we started to invest in these local offices. First of all, as I said before, AppsFlyer is a generic value, one version to all customers. I think that's amazing. And having said that, definitely there's different customers in China, in Japan, in India, in the UK, and then the US or in LATAM that uses different things. Also, the focuses always change. So when China was in user acquisition, others just started to think about user acquisition. Then China moved to re-engagement. Then other regions started to do user acquisition. And then when China started to invest a lot more budgets in user acquisition and re-engagements, then the other regions started to invest more budgets in user acquisition and so forth. I think that definitely our success is providing that value and providing that service globally, and really hiring amazing local teams to deliver that value in the language, in the time zone, as close as possible. And before COVID, also meeting face to face, going to the customer offices. Not a lot. Like I would say, I would guess it would be between 10 to 20%, and the rest was Zoom even before. But that 10-20% is definitely the edge. And I think that definitely if you look at the future, I think that Zoom is here to stay, but face-to-face is going to come back. I just came back a month ago from San Francisco. I met 8 customers. Those meetings are invaluable. You cannot replace them. That's exactly the value that we need to provide our customers. I think that going out of COVID, it will definitely be 10x more appreciated also from the other side.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to see more people that from across the world. So I definitely agree on that. So cool. I think definitely there's a lot to take home. I had a great conversation, Ziv. I learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to spreading this and to keeping in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.